Hi, as you know, I am Kaylin, and today we're going to be covering the Jumpstart menu. We're going to go through each tab and just see what each one will do. Now, basically, your Jumpstart menu is a bunch of wizards to just help you what is step 1, 2, 3, and 4. If your Jumpstart menu does not appear when you open up your user module, it can be found in this little green square with an arrow, and it'll bring your Jumpstart screen up. So what you've got here is you've got your different tabs which allows you to do certain things. So if you need to go and do something that involves your employees, you would obviously then go to the first tab. Now if you need to go and add any new employees or give them a card, you would then go through these steps. Now there is a few steps that this Jumpstart does skip. Which you might need to obviously go back then into your Blueman and highlight that employee change and fill in some extra information. So let's go through this. So the first step is to add your employee. You can then put the employee number in, the first name and last name. Now just to show you a little bit of a difference here already, if you go to your Blueman and we click on add here, there's a ton of extra things that you would put in, like ID numbers and pay numbers and titles, etc., etc. So there's obviously a lot more information in your Blueman, but this is covering the basics of what you need when adding an employee. So you need to put in an employee number, so let's just choose 2001. You can put in your first name and your last name. Okay, and you can click on add. Now obviously you can go and add multiple employees as well. You don't need to close the screen, open it, add again and fill in all that information, so you can put in multiple employees quick and easily in this thing. So we've added our employee 2001. I now need to close the screen and go to the next step. Now the next step is assigning a card to the employee. Now whether you're using fingerprints or proximity cards or whatever, generally you do require a card number to be assigned. With certain clocks you might not need a card number where it actually is linked to the employee number then. But let's go through this. So the next step is assigning a card number. You can immediately see then which cards are still available. You can also see then who hasn't got any cards yet. So this is a quick and easy screen to come to, especially when you're setting up your system initially and you need to make sure that everybody has got cards. You can do a quick scan through here and just check who doesn't have a card. I'm going to use my employee and I want to assign 0001 card to them. The easiest way to do that now is to just drag and drop that. If you're not too particular as to which card is assigned to which number, sometimes you do want it that the card number would actually match the employee number, so then you would drag and drop them specifically. Otherwise, if you're not too worried about which card is assigned to which employee, there's a quick button which says give everyone a card. Once you've done that, it'll just quickly assign cards to all the employees then that are in your list then. Okay, so you can then just close that screen. That's your second step done. You've given them a card. Now the third step is to create some shifts. Now generally you would not then need to do this step if your shift has been pre-configured. So when you buy a system, generally there is some configuration that a consultant would do for you and set up it according to, the shifts according to your requirements, with all the rules that apply there. If you have to, you can follow the little wizard of setting up a shift here. Once again, there's a lot of stuff that it skips as well, but the very basics it will enter in here. So you can then enter your codes, your descriptions, put some extra notes there. I'm just going to say, let's say that, and it's another day shift for admin. And I'm just going to leave all that as that. I'm not too worried about that right now. You can specify start and end times for each of your days. So you would go forth then and carry on. Let me just see, I'll have to put in some start times here. I'm just going to use a very general rule all the way through. Let's just do this, 1700. So as you can see, it's pretty basic then in terms of that. Obviously you would then specify any, let's say your Friday you would work slightly earlier, you would leave, you would specify those start and end times there then. So we click on next. Let's see, the end time must be after the start time. I'm missing something, yeah? Have I skipped something? Yes, I have skipped something. There you go. So we've got 8 till 5 all the way through. And there you go. Now it asks you, do the employees on the shift get a lunch break? Yes or no? So you can specify whether they do get one. And then obviously from which time to which time can they take leave and how long must that break be. So let's say they got to take then there's 30 minutes break. And are the employees paid for this lunch break? Yes or no? In other words, do you want that 30 minutes to be deducted from the total hours or not? And do you want them to actually clock for that lunchtime that they would, would they normally clock out for that? Once you've selected those options, click on next. You would then specify whether you want your rounding options. So that would then round, say, to the nearest 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever your requirements is in terms of rounding there. And you would obviously then specify what your rounding period would be then. And where do you want to break? So basically this break, the rounding break, once it has come to 8 minutes, so let's say this guy is 9 minutes, 8 hours and 9 minutes, it'll round it off to 8 hours and 15 minutes. So that's your break then. Anything 8 and under will obviously round down again to, to 0 for argument's sake. Okay, so then you would specify that, click on next, and now you would specify whether this shift is a weekly or a bi-weekly shift or a monthly shift. So I'm going to leave this on weekly for now. We're just going to do the basic one. Click on next, specify the first day of your week. So, does your week run from a Wednesday to a Tuesday for argument's sake, or does it run from Monday to Sunday? You would specify that first date there. I'm going to leave that on Monday and click on next. So basically then it gives you, says you're ready now to create the shift. If you're happy with all those settings, if you need to go back and change something for argument's sake, you can just go back. Otherwise, you would just click on finish and it will create that shift according to the rules that you've entered. Now, like I say, this is a very basic little shift wizard. It does not do any fancy allowances and, funny rules like that. So if you have got a shift which is a slightly more complicated configuration, I would definitely recommend that you rather contact your consultant and ask them just to set this shift up with you, because obviously you're playing around with people's money here. Not a funny thing to do if the shifts aren't set up correctly there. But that's a basic shift, basically just set up there with that. And then the last step that you need to do is actually give each employee a shift. So these employees that have not been assigned the shift, so especially your new employee, you would need to put them on a shift. If they aren't allocated a shift, it obviously cannot calculate the hours according to the clockings that he's clocking. And obviously this employee won't get paid then. So immediately you'll see all the employees that don't have a shift are highlighted. Their text is black. Those that do have a shift are grey. And you can obviously go and assign a other shift to them as well. I'm going to just say that I want this employee to work on my new shift, and I'm going to drag and drop that there. Okay, same thing as before with the cards. You can then just assign everybody a shift. Let's say you've only got one shift and everybody's going to be on the same shift. You can obviously just go and just assign everybody to that particular shift then. The do not process shift, just so that you guys know, is if you've got managers for argument's sake and you want them to clock in, but you don't want the system to calculate any hours for them, you can put them on a do not process shift. You will be able to then see all their clockings and print the clockings report, etc., but it will not obviously process any hours for this employee. And obviously then you can't see anything like late arrivals or early departures because he's not really on a shift which specifies his start and end time for that. Okay, so that's actually adding everybody on a shift. You've then basically successfully added an employee. The next step is obviously to either then enroll the fingerprint on the clock, or if you've got the hand punch clocks, you'd obviously enroll that biometric there. The relevant clock that you've got, you would obviously then just assign their fingerprint, then enroll their fingerprint, or just test the card. If you're using proximity, just check that it is working on the clock before you actually give that to the employee. So that would be then your first tab, adding an employee. Quick and easy way to do it. It covers the basics that you need in there. Like I said before, If you go to your Blueman, you should also be able to see that employee there. And let's say you need to go and add some extra things like hire dates, etc. You can just change and then obviously go and fill in any extra information, especially if your shift is dependent on classifications. Make sure that you have then assigned the appropriate classifications to the employee. And obviously if there is any other information you want to fill in, you can then populate that in the screen. Okay, so that's that first tab for employees. If we move on to the second one, it'll be classifications. Now in this classification screen, you can go and create new classifications that you need, and you can also assign the employees to those particular classifications, and obviously then also create those groups for the reports that you need to print. So let's start at the first step. Generally, if you've done this once, or if your system has been pre-configured, you don't need to do this first step. Basically what this does is it goes into the system options and you can select which types of classifications you want to use. Now you can, for argument's sake, let's say you've got these 5 classifications and you now want to choose a type, use that kind of type of classification as well. You can then go and tick that, or if you want a category for argument's sake, or let's say you're not using department or scale at all, you can obviously go and remove those as well there. So I'm going to choose then category for now. We click on OK. We then go to the second step, which we actually create the classifications. Now if you don't want to choose a specific an additional type of classification, if I can call it that, then you would skip step 1 and go straight to step 2. So let's say you've already got departments set up and you now want to create a new department in this list. Just skip step 1, go to step 2, highlight your classification that you want to create the new one in. So let's say department for argument's sake, and you click on add. Here you can then go and specify a description for it. So let's just say we've got marketing. Let's see, maybe we want to have support is our other department. You can just put that description in. Don't worry about the code. It'll automatically give, increment the codes as it goes along. You can also go and specify a certain color if you want to be specific with a color that you want to choose for them. And then once you click on OK, that classification will be created. So you can obviously go and create multiple extra classifications here if you've got additional ones. Now once you've actually created those classifications, that classification will not be available to print any reports yet. You've purely created the classification, which you can then go and classify your employees according to that. You now need to create the group in order for it to be available for you to select when printing reports. So that brings you to the third step then. So you would click on that. Now sometimes if you've set up multiple new classifications, you're not quite sure, you can't remember which all ones you set up, you can simply highlight all of them and it'll generate all the new ones there. If you know, okay, I've only specifically created an extra department, you can just go and tick that, click on OK, and it will create that group for you in order for you to print reports. And then you would then lastly classify those employees. Especially when you're obviously doing a new employee and you want to go and classify them, you can do it in the screen as well, or you can go to the Blueman, highlight that employee, and go and classify them there. In the screen, this is also a nice one for initial setup. If you need to go and classify multiple employees, you will see then you've got your list of your types of classifications here for your department, for argument's sake. Once you've selected that group, it'll list all the different types of departments in the second column here. So let's say I want to go and select the support one because I want to put a whole lot of people in support. You would highlight that department's description, and then in this block in the middle here, you will see then all the employees that are not allocated to any department yet. So they haven't been classified under any of these departments. If I just highlight any one of the other departments, you will see on the right hand side, it'll display all the employees that have been classified in the technical department. So in this case, I've still got 2 users here that I need to classify. So I would highlight the appropriate department, highlight the employee, and I would move them over to the right hand side. I'm just going to highlight another one, admin, and I want this user to be in the admin group, and I would move them over to the right hand side. So then obviously all your employees are classified. It's also a quick and easy way for you to just check. If you go through your classifications, you can quickly see who hasn't been classified under which classification. Once again, yeah, I know this employee hasn't been classified in a company yet. Let's say I want to move everybody over that's in this center block here. I want to move them over to the right. There is a double arrow which will simply just move everybody in this list over to the right hand side. And so you can go through each classification and put them in the appropriate group there. Okay, so that's a quick and easy way to classify your employees, and then you've basically done all 4 of those steps. So that has from step 1 to 4 you've done your classifications. The third tab that we've got is the Leave tab. So in the screen you can once again go and select the leave features that you want, which goes into the system options, and you can go and specify whether you want public holidays or split that. I generally wouldn't mess around with this too much because if you've had your configuration, your shifts configured and set up there, you wouldn't want to go and mess around with any of those things. A nice thing to do is in the third step, if you need to go and add any public holidays, you can come to this screen and it'll open up your public holidays window, and you can go and add all the public holidays that you need to. And in order for you to add a public holiday, you can click on Add, select the date that you want to for that public holiday, put the description in, and you can specify whether this holiday happens on the same day next year again. So it reoccurs every year on that same date. This public holiday reoccurs. You would then tick that then. Okay, so I'm just going to cancel that. I don't want to add another public holiday. And you can obviously just quickly see if those public holidays has been added. So let's say for argument's sake you don't have any public holiday hours, as in a previous video. You can quickly come and check here in this public holiday list, has that public holiday actually been added? If not, add that, do a reprocess, and those hours will then appear according to your configuration, whether they get double time for working on a public holiday or whether they get their normal hours if they didn't work. Okay, so that's adding your public holidays. You can also go and create your own separate leave types. So let's say you've got a new leave type that you want to add here for some type of specific leave to your company, or else you can, let's say we want to add a long service leave there. We don't have that in yet. You can just simply go and add that. You can specify whether the system needs to automatically assign those hours or not assign any hours at all. In other words, it's not paid, or whether you manually want to go and add those hours in. You can also specify whether these days are deducted from any paid or sick leave totals that you've got. And then obviously if you're using leave accruement, you would specify whether this leave can be accrued, this leave type can be accrued, and then whether it can be accrued in days or in hours. Okay, so I'm going to just leave that off. You can also then, if you need to put in a payroll name, if you're exporting to payroll, you can then include in payroll and put that pay code that is in MYOB for argument's sake. But I would also once again just confirm that when you're adding these things, because that it's actually pulling through to your payroll system, because generally in your reports there is a actual print detail for that leave type, which will then specify that printing those hours. So just simply adding the leave type here might not pull it through to your payroll system. I would obviously confirm that with your consultant as well. Once again, you can then select any colors that you want. If you're happy with all those settings, you can click on OK, and your leave type has been added. And you can obviously go and use that. And then we've got the fifth step. Obviously you'll see some steps are grayed out, whether you're using, you've got different states that you need to set up different public holidays for, or etc. Assign certain states to employees. I obviously don't have that enabled, on this system here. But if you do use those things, you can obviously go and add extra states and assign those employees to those states as well. And then we've got step 6, my apologies, where you can actually create the leave scales. Now, if you're using, if your leave can be accrued, like we had this option here, that they can be accrued either in days or in hours, you would need to create a leave scale for that leave type. So let's just select that and close that. and we can go to our leave scales and create new leave scales. Obviously, depending on whether this has been pre-configured or not, you can have your consultant do that for you if you don't want to mess around with this. But you can obviously go and add an additional one there as well. So if you just click on Add, you can put in a description of that scale. So I'm, for argument's sake, going to say long service leave, 1 day per month, for argument's sake. That'd be quite nice. And you can specify how many days the employee earns, which in my case is 1 day, or obviously if it's earning hours. And you can also then specify after how many days worked does he earn this 1 day. So in my case it's after 1 month, so he will earn 1 day for every month that's passed. Or you can specify whether he's got to work a certain number of shifts or simply just a certain number of hours in a certain column. And then obviously you can also go and specify whether this leave type is accrued in advance, at the start of the cycle, if you want it to be rounded, or if there's a maximum carried forward balance for this specific leave scale. Once you've specified all that information, you can click on OK, and that leave scale has been added there. And then obviously the last thing that you need to do is to assign that leave scale that you've just created to the employees. So that would be then step 7. You would highlight your leave type that you want that this leave scale is assigned to. You would then obviously highlight your employees that you want to give them the leave type, and then obviously throw them over to the right hand side. So let's say we want to assign this to those 3 employees. And then you would obviously specify from which date does this leave scale need to be assigned. So let's just say from the 1st of October they will start earning this leave, they will accrue long service leave. And you would obviously then highlight the leave scale that is linked to that leave type. And you can click on Add, and all those leave types will be leave scales will be assigned to those employees. And that is then covering your leave. You've got then your 4th tab, which is your reports. Now in this one you can actually choose which reports you've got. Now in this list you generally see all the reports that have not been archived. You can, if you simply just tick that, see all the reports that have been set up in the system. Otherwise, if you go to the Jumpstart, you can also come and choose the reports that you want to see here. So all the reports on the left hand side is ones that you currently can see in your list, and all the ones on the right hand side are those that have been archived. So let's say you want a clockings report. Let's just see, we want a TNA clockings report. We can highlight that report and move it over to the left hand side here. And then that report will now be available in this list here. The same with step 2, you can go and specify the payroll extracts that you want. Now obviously this is dependent on the payroll codes and everything that you've got set up in your payroll currently. So simply just choosing a MYOB payroll system is not necessarily going to work for you, as this has got some default codes in here which don't necessarily match your payroll system. Generally with a payroll extract, you would need this to be configured by your consultant first in order for you to use that and export those hours to your your payroll system that you've got. Okay, but if for some reason you cannot see one and one has been set up, you can just come and check that it hasn't been archived. If you go then to step 3, you can also set up scheduled reports. So they say every morning at 8:30 or at 8 o'clock, this one you want a current absenteeism report to be sent through to you. You can go and add that. So let's just add a new one. You can specify which report. So even let's say you want a clockings report, that simply prints your clockings. You can select that type of report. Select whether it is triggered by a time, or if you've got proximity cards that every time someone would actually swipe that card, it'll print the report. Generally, you would set it up on a time-based scheduled report there. You can specify then on which date does this report need to start printing. So let's say from tomorrow I want this report to print. At what time do I want this report to print? Now because there's already a report at 8 o'clock, I'm going to make this report print at, let's say, 8:15. so that it's just not that you don't have two reports printing at the same time. You can say then how often does it need to repeat. So let's say we wanted to repeat every day I want this report, and then you can obviously give a description of the report. This is a clockings report, let's put that in there, and you can specify which days do you want it to print. So I want it to print Monday through to Friday. I don't want it to print on a Saturday and Sunday. And then you can go and set the report parameters. So if you go in here, you can obviously, the same as when you would print a normal report, you can specify then whether it needs to go directly to the printer, or if you've got your email set up, it can email directly to your email address that you can specify here. And then you can also specify the from date. So let's say for argument's sake you want this report to print for today. Obviously at 8:15 it'll print everybody that is clocked in for today. You can specify that. Now this doesn't have a nice little calendar for you to select, but the field that you would need to enter there is today with the two little rounded brackets. So if you want the today to be also for today, let's see, you would put that in there as well. So obviously now today doesn't mean that it is literally today the 10th of October, but that would then on each day it'll print that day's clockings as it goes through there. Okay, so this is the same screen as what you would see then in your normal printing screen. You would specify this. You would also specify which employees you want to print. You only want to print for one employee. Generally, you would obviously select all non-terminated or a specific branch that you want to set up, and you would save that. Once you have specified all that information, you can click on OK, and that report will obviously start printing tomorrow at 8:15. It'll be sent through, depending on what your options that you've selected, it'll either be emailed or printed directly to the printer, etc. So that's then setting up your scheduled report. So you've chosen the reports you want, select the payroll extract, and obviously set up a scheduled report that can either be emailed or printed. You then have your job costing tab, which depending on whether you're using job costing or not, you can go and add new jobs to this thing. You can create new charge rates for those jobs. First step again would be to actually select the features that you want for job costing. Once again, going into the system options and selecting whether you're using these. Generally, this should be set up with your initial setup of your system. If you've been using job costing. You can also go and select the types of classifications that you want to use for your jobs. Just tick which ones need to be available, and then you can also go and add your different types of jobs to the system. If you need to go and add a new one, you can put in your job codes, the job number, your description, your dates, obviously when you expect it to finish, all that information that concerns your job costing, and any other job management or customer information, etc. that you need to put in there. Once you're happy with all the information that has been filled in, you can click on OK, and that would obviously add then the new job that you have in here. You can obviously then also go and create new charge rates for those jobs then. So let's say you've got a new one, let's say you're not doing $10 anymore, you're going up to $12 per hour for the clerks. You can then go and add a new charge rate and specify the description and the dates and what those actual rates would be for the specific category of hours there. Now generally you've got your different pay rates here. You might just have normal, which is all the hours are at the rate of normal. Sometimes you might see both of these. Now this is generally when the employee is on leave or when it's a public holiday, then this rate would be used for those hours. Okay, so once you've actually then gone and specified those types, set up those charge rates, the information that you need, you can click on OK, and that new charge rate will be added there. You can also go and copy a specific charge rate. So let's say you want all this information that's here and you simply want to make it $12 per hour now. You can copy that one and just go and edit that information that is needed there. And that's your job costing menu that you've got there with those specific steps then. You've got the second last one, which is then access control. So depending on whether you're using access control features or not, you would have this option available. And once again, the first step is always going into the system options, where you would specify what types of features you require. As before, this would generally be set up at the initial setup configuration of your system that will already be selected. You can then go and create extra access rights. Let's say you've got another area that you need to restrict these employees to. You can go and create an access right for that specific area. So we click on Add. You'd specify your description then, and then whether, obviously if you've got multiple clocks here, whether they may clock in or out at that clock. Now you've obviously then have your different devices set up here, and he may not be at the front door, he may not access that, and perhaps he may only go into the factory, so you would select yes for that one then. You can also go and specify which employees are actually in that access rights group there that you create here. Okay, so once you've actually created the extra access rights that you want there, you can also create the different areas. Now your areas are generally assigned to the clocks itself, to the device itself. You'd have an in area and an out area when they clock. You can go and add new areas here, but generally, again, that should already be set up with your new device that you have there, which has got the in area and the out area set up. If you're not sure, you can always then contact your support consultant just to make sure what's happening there. Then you've got the fourth one, which is time zones. So let's say you've got specific time zones that the employee may clock in or may not clock in. You can obviously go and add, or you can edit time zones that are there already. So let's say, for argument's sake, you've got this time zone for mornings only. You can go and change the times there and say, okay, this shift now starts at 7 o'clock, so they may come in from 7 o'clock. And then till 12 for argument's sake. So you can go and specify when they are allowed to clock in. And obviously then also you can see which employees are actually assigned to that time zone that you have edited there. And obviously you can also go and add the new ones if you need to, or remove any time zones that you need to as well there. And that would be your access control tab. Your last one that you've got here is your HR tab, or your Human Resources tab, which you can basically, once again, go into the system options with step 1 and specify what do you actually want to use in the HR. Now this is obviously also dependent, as with the job costing and the access control, dependent on which module you've actually got activated. So if you've then either got the HR module or the access module, etc., this will then be available to you. Otherwise it will be grayed out. And then you can also go and specify all the different types of classifications that you want according to that HR that you've got, information that you've got there. So you can go and add extra classes or extra positions if you've got a new position that's created now in your business that you need to go and add. You can obviously go and add that information there then. This would pretty much work the same as your classifications window, where you would select the specific type and then go and add that information there. And that's pretty much your Jumpstart. So like I say, it's a little bit of a wizard which explains to you step 1, 2, 3 and 4. It doesn't always include everything that you need in it, but like I say, it's the basics that get covered here in order for it at least to work. Obviously, again, depending on your shift setups, and configuration, whether you've got slightly more advanced shifts, and obviously your payroll setup, just simply adding a extra leave type might not necessarily be calculating those hours correctly, or then pulling it through to your payroll system. So you would need to consult, if you've tried this for argument's sake and it's still not working, please contact your support consultant to just help you further and correct anything that is needed there. I hope you have learned something and that you will join me next time. Goodbye.